Hello and welcome. My name is Jasmine Keys, and you are listening to Why, How, Impact, the series that breaks down what it takes to be a leader and why on earth they do it. Today's trailblazer is Celessa Baker. She is the Vice President of Brand Marketing for Hair and Makeup at SEPHORA. Thank you so much for being here. I'm such a huge fan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Actually, I'm now in a new role, newly released Vice President of Marketing Partnerships. In true fashion, the industry moves quickly, and leadership roles evolve before you can blink. So I'm excited to build up a new team that Sephora is really leaning into.
Oh my gosh, incredible,
Yeah.
exclusive for Why, How, Impact. Thank you so much, Celessa.
Yeah.
Well, you've had quite a few changes in your career. You started off in entertainment. You were
Yes.
at Sony Music, Radio One, ABC. You covered a lot of big
Yeah.
brands there. And then you kind of decided to make a shift into the retail side of things. You were at Men's Warehouse for a few years before you got your first role at Sephora. And well, thank goodness you took that leap because you have done some truly incredible work since then. And I can't wait to see what you do in this partnerships role. You've already led the global launch for Fenty Beauty.
Mhm.
You've been a huge driver in the Black owned beauty campaign. And your team had overseen the brand participation in the TikTok Sephora Accelerate Incubator program as well.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing in this new role?
Well, this new role is really about ensuring that Sephora is at the forefront of the next generations of consumers' mindset. So, how do we engage with Gen Z? Not yet quite Gen Alpha, but Gen Z. Really, how do we stay at the forefront? And really, what we're seeing in that space is about community and connection. So, how can Sephora have a footprint beyond its four walls and connect with consumers in innovative, disruptive, and first to market ways that really have that long staying power so that when those consumers are ready to shop for beauty, they think of Sephora first? And we're not just a beauty retailer. We stand on so many values and we're purpose driven. We are leading our sustainability charges. We're leading our inclusivity and diversity initiatives and efforts. We were the first to sign up for the 15% pledge. So we're more than just a retailer, more than just a beauty retailer. We're really an industry leader in multiple facets. And so we're hoping that our values connect with those consumers in a myriad of ways so that when they are ready to spend their dollar, they feel at home at Sephora. And so this team is really leading the charge on making sure that connectivity leads through in all the consumer engagement elements.
Wow. And I'm not surprised Sephora is doing that at all because, I'm a big fan of Sephora and not just for the products, although I am for the products, but the marketing. Like you said, it's the way that you've managed to create this incredibly inclusive community around beauty, and you just dominate the scene.
Oh, that's so flattering, and we are so appreciative of that. A lot of hard work goes into that behind the scenes. It takes a lot of collaboration, it takes a lot of team initiatives and efforts, but it also takes risk, which Sephora does not shy away from. As a retailer, we are a trailblazer. We're known as a trendsetter. We're known at being at the forefront of disruption and innovation. And so this is part of our DNA. It is really who we are as a retailer and a brand. But more importantly, we're very purpose driven and we are really rooted in how do we ensure that not only Sephora is inclusive, but the beauty industry at large is inclusive. We are pushing our brands and our partners to make sure that they hold true to our values. And that's something that's intrinsic when we think about which brands and partners we want to actually engage with. That value set needs to be aligned.
Yeah, and consumers demand that
Yes.
of brands. It's difficult, obviously. It's not all fun and games, and marketing isn't easier. It's hard to stay on top. So, what do you love about it? What says purpose to you? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
First, I'm a people first leader. So it's really about the teams around me, how to engage and support my teams so that they are building out initiatives and efforts that make them better marketers. Then secondly, it's also the consumers, the clients that we engage with, making sure that we are really representative of the diaspora of people that shop within our walls. So it's making that connection. How can you ideate and innovate something in the marketing space that really you can see come to life from just an idea in infancy to the impact that it has on the communities that you're trying to reach, or the feedback loop. We live in a social first environment, so it's no shortage of feedback that you get. Right? You can launch a campaign and within 10 seconds, people have very strong points of view on whether they love it or they hate it, whether it speaks to them or not. They're picking apart the creative execution, the model selection, the verbiage, the layout, the brands, how you bring it to life, where you're marketing it. And so making sure that you're staying on top of each of those elements as you are ideating so that when it is consumer facing, it's really easy for the consumer to digest, absorb, and they feel seen, heard, validated, and represented.
Was entertainment not meeting that need of yours to have that impact on the consumer?
I would say no, entertainment is inclusive in its own way. I think I was ready for a career shift and change. What I loved about the entertainment industry was the innovation and speed of which things happened. But it actually behind the scenes, there's so much work when you're thinking about how an artist goes from unknown to a mega superstar. That doesn't actually happen overnight. It could be for some artists a 10-year journey. For some, it's a 1-year journey. I will say in the social media world, it's expedited. You can be a star overnight and a star not 2 weeks later. But what I was craving more was some of the rigor and a little bit more of the business side of the marketing. And I found that retail was that perfect mix of fast-paced innovation, but structure and marketing that you get from a CPG kind of world, where you're really seeing the creative briefs and all of those elements. A lot of the entertainment industry is like gut-driven. I can see who is going to be a star. We're going to put all of our eggs behind that individual and really drive. And I wanted a little bit more of the rigor that I didn't go to grad school. I didn't get my MBA. And so it was more of the self-taught, and I needed to round out my skill set. And I thought that this sector would really help that. And what I found is beauty is even that much more innovative. It's speed to market, it's speed in ideation, it's influence over an industry that kind of filled that learning journey for me to round me out as a marketer.
Incredible. And I mean, the journey that you've had through Sephora, I mean, you've been promoted, what, like 5 times, 6 times now. Congratulations. You were clearly leading in a very inclusive and thoughtful way. How would you describe your leadership style? You mentioned people first.
I think my leadership style, it's evolved. It's not a set it and forget it. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to lead with empathy. I will say when I first got promoted at Sephora, I reflect back to that moment where my peers were now my direct reports. That was one of the hardest transitions I had to make, where it was friends that we would go to lunch with. We would talk about things. We would ideate together. We were peers. And now I was their boss and their leader. And it was so hard for me. It was very lonely and isolating, but it also was a steep learning curve because you have to disassociate kind of the friendship from the leadership. And that journey took a while. I would say the first year I was not a great people manager in that regard because I had to learn how to stop rolling up my sleeves and showing them this is how I would do it, to more, let me understand your thought process and your thinking and how you get through the journey. And I provide guardrails and support and remove boundaries. And I think as a people leader, it's really a couple of things. One, identifying each individual's ability to learn, their passion points, their strengths, and their opportunities, and coaching and guiding them accordingly. It's not a one size fits all. Secondly, it is understanding where you're trying to go, both at the business level and as an individual person and their career growth. What is driving them? The why. And then bringing that all together so that it impacts the business. You want an individual to feel that they can come to work and be their whole self and that they are supported by their leader to attain the goals that are important to them that are also aligned to the business. And so it's a puzzle piece, and it is really work and rigor that has to go into that to develop individuals into the next generation of leaders.
That idea of empowerment comes up a lot, and being able to create those guardrails has been mentioned a few times already from other the speakers in this series. It's that idea of empathy as well that comes across in almost all of the leaders that I speak to. Is there any other way?
I think, the whole self. We've been doing some work with an outside consultant, and one of the things that I really remember is whenever they would start a meeting, it started with a check-in. What's going on for you personally and professionally? Because what they identified in that scenario was you need to understand what's happening outside of the work environment, because that person might be dealing with ailments from elderly parents, a sick kid, or just other personal elements that when they bring that into the work environment, you're not seeing that stressor because they're not talking about it, and you're just dealing with the work. And so, yes, leading with empathy, but also identifying the core functionality and talent in an individual is key. What drives and motivates them? Some people are motivated by money. You give me a good paycheck, I'm going to do more work. Some people are motivated by affirmations. You tell me I'm doing a great job, that is fulfilling for me, and I'm going to move forward. So it is really understanding those unique differences of the individuals and allowing them to be themselves and bring all of that into the workplace. And I would say diverse perspectives matter in that regard as well. Just because I have a point of view on something, I've always told my team, I've coached them. I said, your point of view doesn't have to be the same as mine, but I want you to have the why behind your point of view and bring that to me, because it might open up a new perspective for me. It might get me to see the opportunity from a different purview so that we get to where we need to go. It's just how we get there together.
Yeah, and that's the flaw of, how you mentioned your less experienced self always telling them what to do. You don't get those new ideas, and ideas within a company can't come from a single person. It's a collaborative effort.
It is. It's definitely collaboration, especially in a large matrixed organization. You have to lead sometimes by influencing, you have to lead by doing, and sometimes you have to lead by observing. And oftentimes the speed and pace in which you do that in an organization matters. An organization's business might be stalling, and you're so passionate about something that isn't going to have immediate bottom line impact. So the idea will not get through to upper leadership because everybody is focused on, I need to drive the short-term business right now to cover my financial gap. Versus we are in our free thinking, innovative stage, and we're taking all new ideas and we're willing to take risk. There's just a time and tenor in an organization that individuals need to understand when they're thinking through how and when to present things.
Absolutely. I want to move on to your legacy, Celessa. I want to look at the future. But first, tell me, what are you most proud of in your career?
If I reflect right now as I transition into a new team, so I'll think short term, I'm really proud of the team that I was able to build over the last 7 or 8 years. A team that is really diverse, both in ethnicity and points of view and socioeconomic backgrounds and just upbringings. Also, the team that has stuck together with very little turnover, they're a very close-knit team, and their throughput and their contributions to Sephora has been amazing. That really brings me joy, and it really makes me happy on the inside. It to look back and say, wow, I watched you from 5 years ago and you started as an assistant manager and we've worked so closely together and now you're the leader of this team as I move on. That brings me joy. The thinking and the camaraderie that was built within that era really, really, it's not about my accomplishments. It used to be. So it used to be when I was trying to climb to become a leader, it's like, what can I show on my resume or my portfolio? I did this campaign, I launched this new thing. Now it's less about what did I do, but what are the impact of the people that I am coaching and guiding, and what is their impact going to be on the business? I think as leaders, it's really more about your team than it is about you.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely a natural shift into senior leadership. You are relying on and empowering the people on your team and on their teams and their teams as you make your way up the career ladder. So that makes and it entirely makes sense. When you think about the balance between your mission to create a more inclusive beauty world
Yes.
and building up your teams and seeing them flourish, how do those two kind of passions and legacies collide?
I think an inclusive beauty world stems, and a few years ago, the industries were changing, not just beauty, right? The world was shifting to be more inclusive, more representative, more about what is happening in the world at a global level, not just in this micro socioeconomic level. I think I really reflect on individuals that have different points of view and have different backgrounds. That's first. Having voices in the room that are representative of this larger global impact in this larger world. Then it is giving those voices and perspectives a voice in the room beyond just your team meeting. It's in the organization. And then it's taking those voices and carrying it outside of the four walls of Sephora. If I'm using Sephora as an example, how do we carry that inclusivity messaging and push to our brand partners, to our vendors, to our creative teams, to everybody that is touching beauty at large? Because on an island, we can only do so much, but collectively, we can have such a broader impact. So it's really threading the needle across the industry and bringing in examples. And I think oftentimes inclusivity gets lost in the message when it's not tied to the business. And so sometimes you have the hurdle of convincing individuals that this is good for business because we're all in business and we have to show the financial impact. But sometimes creating that goodwill, creating that ripple effect of Sephora is value centric. And oh my goodness, that has a longer impact on the business that sometimes when you're starting it, you cannot see. And so it is diversity in perspective, diversity in individuals and talent and skill set. Everything, my upbringing brings a different perspective to how I approach my work or to what I see as a trigger or additive for me or how I feel represented. So all of those things matter when you're looking at individuals to hire, individuals to coach and groom, individuals to assign to certain projects, and then how you take that outside of your four walls.
We are all a product of our experiences.
Yes.
We try to wrap this webcast up with a bit of a summary.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say each word, and I'd like you to respond with a very short one sentence answer, starting
Okay.
with because, by, and to.
Okay.
So, why?
Why? I do it for the broader impact on both the communities that are important to me, the values that are intrinsic with me, but also the people that will cross my paths that may be the future generation of marketers. That is really my why.
How?
Empathy. Empathy matters. Individualism. So identifying each individual's personal goals and needs so that you are leading through what will be fulfilling to them. And leading with empathy so that individuals can bring their whole self into the workplace. And collaboration is going to be huge in any of that. It's not just a tops down approach, it's a bottoms up approach in leadership. I am here as the foundation and the support, not as the person that is going to tell you what you have to do.
And impact.
I want my impact to be at an individual level that then creates a ripple effect for each individual that then creates a tidal wave that then creates long-lasting reach. That's really what's important to me. I have two little girls. I hope that I leave the work and the people a little bit better than when they first came into my life or when we first crossed paths, so that we can realize the maximum impact from each individual creating this great big ripple in both the industry, in marketing and beauty and retail, all of those together.
That's really beautiful, and what a legacy to leave for your two little girls. Honestly, the work that you're doing and your dedication to, I guess, making everyone else feel a little bit more seen in the world is really commendable and inspiring. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with the world.
Thank you so much for your guys' time today. I had such a blast
Thank
and
you.
it's good work. It makes me feel good, so I enjoy doing it.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Why How Impact is a weekly conversation with our 2024 Trailblazing Women. So make sure you subscribe and tune in next week as we continue to explore what it takes to be a leader and the powerful why behind it all. Until then, keep striving to find what motivates you and what gets you out of bed in the morning. I'm Jasmine Keys, and this is Why How Impact. We'll see you next time.